What is up, my brothers and sisters, my agents of respect? It's your boy Trey Johnson back with another episode of the No Disrespect But podcast. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Always feel free to comment. Just make sure you keep those comments respectful. And if you're interested in supporting your favorite podcaster, yours truly, the link to do so will be in the episode description. So appreciate the support, guys. Now, today's episode, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. And before I get to the main topic, definitely wanted to shed light on an important game coming up tonight in the WNBA. It's going to be the WNBA Commissioner's Cup, that being the Liberty versus the Lynx. And if you guys aren't familiar with the Commissioner's Cup, it's an in-season competition. So kind of like, basically the NBA kind of took their in-season tournament idea from the WNBA. And so it's kind of similar to that. It's in-season competition. It starts at the beginning of the season from game one and kind of goes through the first half of the season. And the final is played between the Western Conference team with the best record at that point in time and the Eastern Conference team with the best record at that point in time. And look, there's a lot to play for here. Prize money is $500,000, so $500,000 for the winning team. And that equates to about $30,000 per player. The losing players, you hate to lose, right? But you still get a incentive to even make it to the championship game. Players on the losing side, they get $10,000, added to them. So that's pretty good. Even if you lose, you get a little extra money, which is awesome. I wish somebody would just give me $10,000 to fail, but is what it is. And then MVP of said Commissioner's Cup, uh, they actually take home an additional $5,000. So if you're on a winning team, you could take up to $35,000 home for winning one game. So that's pretty freaking awesome. It's something that's been around the WNBA, I think, for a few years, and I wasn't always privy to the particulars in it, but just kind of doing some research and figuring that out. I think that's really good. Honestly, I think they should highlight that more, especially the incentives that go along with that. And I can see with the growth of the game that prize money going, in the millions. I could really see that happening. So really excited for that. But most more excited, I should say, for the two teams that are in it. Now, the New York Liberty, they are the defending Commissioner's Cup champs. They won it last year, and they're looking to repeat, looking to, put some more money in their pocket. They're led by, we know you should know this by now, led by Brianna Stewart, currently averaging 19.7 points, 8.6 boards. Sabrina Ionescu averaging about 19.3 points a game, with a little bit under 7 assists per game. And Jonquel Jones, a former MVP in her own right, averaging just shy under 17 points per game and a little bit under 9 rebounds per game. So we know what their big three is. We know they are pretty much a super team, probably going to be one of the two teams when it's all said and done in the WNBA finals, but they're no surprise, right? So to see them here have the best record in the Eastern Conference, it's not surprising at all. They're sitting at 15-3 currently, but they're going against the Minnesota Lynx, who I know I will say have been a big surprise to me. But I think you're just listening to other folks that are covering the game. The Minnesota Lynx have taken the lead by storm. And should they win this game tonight, they're going to put people on notice that not only are they one of the best teams in the league now, they are for real. If you can beat a team like the New York Liberty, they're hitting on all cylinders right now, looking like the best team in the WNBA right now. People really have to open their eyes to what the Minnesota Lynx are doing. And look, they're 13-3 on the year, first seed, best record in the Western Conference. Their two best players are Nafisa Collier, UConn Husky, you know what it is, averaging just shy of the 21 points per game and a little bit over 10 points per game, or 10 rebounds per game, I'm sorry. So averaging a double-double on the season. And then Kayla McBride at the guard position, averaging a little bit over 16 points per game. And I believe right now, she and Sabrina Ionescu are tied for the most three-pointers made currently in the WNBA. And I mean, Kayla McBride, when you look at some of the stat lines, like I think it was one game, she was like 9 for 9 from three. Like, it's crazy. And what's even worse is it's like people are just leaving her open, daring her to shoot. It's like, did you not check the resume? Are you not watching film? Like, it's crazy. But She's been doing really well in the season, and those two have been, excuse me, largely responsible for the resurgence of the Minnesota Lynx. Um, you know, they look like a team that can actually start to compete again. Meaning, or some of you might remember their heyday where they had Wallen and Simone Augustus and Maya Moore, and they even had a stretch where they had Sylvia Fowles on the team. It was just unfair. And what that organization used to be, and then obviously with Simone retiring, Maya Moore eventually retiring, they weren't in the glory days anymore, and so we're starting to see them maybe get back to that point. Built up a really good squad, led by some really good players, and again, this could be the moment where, hey, they get it done, they show the world. And look, just let you know, this episode is probably going to be out after tip off time. The WNBA Commissioners Cup is expected to tip off at about 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be on national television, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's going to be on ESPN. So you can definitely watch this game. I encourage you to watch this game whenever you have two top teams in the league going at it in the best women's league in the world. You want to make sure you're tuning into that. So we're looking forward to that game. Personally, I think the New York Liberty are the best team in women's basketball right now, and so I have them uh, winning that matchup and going back to back in the Commissioner's Cup. And I'll go one further. I think John Paul Jones will be the MVP of the Commissioner's Cup. So she's going to get an extra 5K, getting that 35,000. So JJ, maybe a profit, please. But kind of wanted to transfer over to, I guess, kind of the main topic, a little bit of the main topic, and it is diving into the NBA nowadays. And there's been a lot going on, whether it be, you know, where is Paul George going to go? Is he opting into his contract to get traded? Is he opting out and signing a big figure deal with a team like the Miami Heat or the Philadelphia 76ers or the New York Knicks? We obviously know the Los Angeles Lakers just hired JJ Redick and got him on a 4-year deal. It's going to be his first time as the head coach. These type of things. We've been talking about the NBA draft, but not the way we talked about it last year when you had a guy like Wemby still in the show. This is one of those drafts where you feel like you might not get your franchise guy, but you might have a guy that can fill an important role on your team to either aid a franchise player that you already have or a franchise player that you might get in future drafts. And so I don't think anybody's looking at this NBA draft pool right now and saying there is a mega star here. Of course, we know there will end up being a few megastars in this draft class, but we just don't know who they are. And as I've been kind of thinking about these things happening in the NBA, right? I got to one conclusion. Does it really matter right now? Like in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter? I'll start with JJ Redick being the head coach of the Lakers. 4-year deal, first time head coach. Obviously, he wasn't their first choice. Dan Hurley, current coach of the UConn Huskies, was their first choice. Of course, JJ mentioned why. This guy's a 2-time defending national champion. I don't have that resume as a coach. I coach my son in the third and fourth grade division. That's just what it is. But does it really matter? Did it really matter who the coach is going to be? Let's say Dan Hurley took that 6-year, 70-something million deal that the Lakers were offering, right? Are the Lakers a good team? Are they a championship team? Granted, yes, they made it to the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago. But we have to really look at this roster, right? 2 years in a row, the Lakers were the 7th seed. They were in the play-in tournament. They had to fight for a playoff spot. Ended up getting the 7th seed. 2 years ago, they upset the Memphis Grizzlies, who, I mean, they were ravaged by injury. Let's just be honest about that. Then in the second round, they beat the Golden State Warriors, have their number, and then they get destroyed essentially from a win-loss record by the eventual champion Denver Nuggets. Then the next year we come in, they get the 7th seed again, going against the 2 seed Denver Nuggets, and they get swept. And when I say does it really matter in the grand scheme of things is what's going to happen with roster construction? Is AD or are AD and LeBron going to stay relatively healthy? And when I say I'm really looking at LeBron aging. Father Time is starting to catch up and starting to close that gap. He's still a phenomenal player, still an all NBA player, but Father Time is starting to catch up to him. And not only will he not have an off season where he can rest and have his body recover, he's going to be playing in the Olympics. Anthony Davis is going to be playing in the Olympics. So you're coming off of that, which means you're probably going to need the likes of an Austin Reeves. We don't know if D'Lo is going to be staying, right. You're going to need a Rui Hachimura, who's likely playing for Japan, so he's going to be an Olympic player as well. You're going to need those guys to maybe step up while AD and LeBron get their bearings. And look, I know that the two of them are the utmost professionals, but you guys have had history with your body breaking down, especially AD. He's been better this past year. I think he played 72, 74 games, something like that. So shout out to him. But LeBron also missed some extended period of time. And if he's missing time, the Lakers, with the current roster that they have, cannot withstand that. And I think the same could be said if LeBron's playing and AD misses a week or two. They are not a good enough roster, or at least they haven't proven to be over the past couple of years to do that. And let's keep in mind, the year they made the Western Conference Finals, they had to make some trades to get some of those key pieces in to help with their playoff run. So does it really matter that JJ Redick got the job? Would it have mattered if Dan Hurley got the job? I don't know. Not as long, in my opinion, not as long as the Rob Pelinka is over roster construction and management, and not as long as Jeannie Buss wants to just run it like a true mom and pop shop instead of the eye and the standard of what professional basketball is, being the Los Angeles Lakers. Yeah, I know the Boston Celtics have the most championships in the NBA, but come on, y'all. In a modern era of basketball, where we had more than 8 freaking teams, the Lakers have been the standard. And they will always be the standard. Guess what? They're still expected to compete for titles. It doesn't matter who the coach is, doesn't matter who's on the roster, doesn't matter who's on ownership. That fan base expects championships. So nothing's changed. So no, JJ's not going to have a grace period just because he's never coached at any high level portion of basketball. He's going to be thrown in the fire like he's a 10, 15-year vet, like he's a Greg Popovich, like he's a Monty Williams, like he's a Doc Rivers. That's how he is going to be treated. Okay. And look, I think he has the personality to maybe withstand that, to kind of block off the haters. But JJ's very aware of what people say about him. And is he going to kind of be making decisions based on what he's hearing on Twitter or always in the media going back and forth with the fan base that will let you know how they feel, good, bad, or indifferent? You're going to know what the purple and gold fan base thinks of you. And you're going to be able to have to take that. And you're going to be able to have to win games and ultimately win titles. Because if you can't win a title, especially in maybe this 2, maybe 3-year window that you have AD and LeBron together, it's all for nothing. So people have been saying, oh, well, it'll look better. Well, the Lakers don't care about looking. They don't care about losing better. They care about winning. And so the people that are telling me this, I don't think they're Lakers fans, because I've never met a Lakers fan that said, well, we lost, but at least we lost looking good. Hell to the no. Any loss is a bad loss. A loss is a loss, right? And so their expectation is winning. JJ, there will be no grace period. You got to go in. You got to make it happen. You better win the championship next year. That's the expectation. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And kind of going to the NBA draft, when I say, does it matter who goes where? Like there's like 3 or 4 players that we're talking about may be the #1 overall pick. We're talking about Reed Shepard. We're talking about Donovan Clingan. We're talking about Alex Sarr, Zach Ricochet. Well, Nikola Topics is kind of out of the deal now, but you got a guy like I think it's Metalis Buzesis, something like that. Like a guy from Chicago that, hey, he may go #1, #2, #3. Like we really don't know. Like this top 10, the whole draft really will be unpredictable. Like I think if Bronny James didn't have that heart issue, and he came in and maybe averaged, let's say, 10 points a game, maybe 4 assists a game at USC, we're talking about him maybe being a top 5 to 10 pick. That's kind of how, I guess, close and unknown this draft class is. I mean, it kind of reminds me of that. I want to say, I guess it's the 2021 NFL draft class where I want to say that's the year like Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis and all those guys were coming out. And you're like, who we get? Like at the quarterback position. And I'm using the quarterback position in this case because in the NBA, picks 1 through at least 8, they're your quarterback for the most part. They're supposed to be the face of your franchise, depending on who you are. And I just don't think we have any faces of the franchise in this draft. Just looking at it on paper and looking at some of the players I've been able to watch on film, I don't think that we have a guy that you say, I'm going to build around him. I think we have a lot of guys where you say, he is a great player or a player that I can put around someone that I'm building around. You know what I mean? So not necessarily there's some role players, right? But then I think there's some guys who could be maybe a 2 or 3 option to your star player. And it's just so unknown. Like I think every GM they're going to deserve some grace in this year's draft, unless they just like totally bottom out and draft a guy that nobody has heard of that they probably never scouted. But if we're just looking at on paper, you can't say with 100% certainty who's going to be that guy. I think everyone has certain traits that can make them really good. I also think there are some traits, maybe some unknown traits that we don't know. We're taking a gamble, and they come to bite us in the behind. So, as a Spurs fan, and I'm looking forward to the draft tomorrow, right? But as a Spurs fan, I'm like, does it really matter? Like, especially if we use the picks. I'm personally a fan of packaging 4 and/or 8 and getting a Trae Young and bringing him on board because I feel like he can create that immediate impact for a guy like Wemby, who's our star player, right? Is in need of a point guard, in need of somebody that can get him the ball in great spots. I think Trae Young right now adds that value. And Wemby has said so many times he wants to be patient, but at the same time, he wants to win. And I think getting a player like that, especially when you have multiple first round draft picks over the next 3 or 4 years, I think you can afford to gamble on that, especially knowing that that Wemby's under his rookie contract. We have time. We have time to gamble, get a star player to pair with him, and maybe run at a deep playoff run next year. And then now we're talking about, okay, how do we get guys around, Trae Young, Victor Wembanyama, a Devin Vassell led team. And then maybe you're the Boston Celtics of 2024. You have your 2 top guys, and now you're just getting some building pieces around them. Who knows? Some people are saying that the Spurs are looking to package 4 and 8 with the Hawks, not to get Trae Young, but to get the #1 overall pick to draft a guy like Zach Shea, or Alex Saw. Who knows? It's French guys who Wimby loves, so we don't know what they're going to do, right? And just kind of on the right before we close out is some of the guys that the Spurs are looking at. And I think when you see how many guys they have at their disposal between picks 4 and 8, it kind of shows that you can get away with maybe some stretches with some picks because you have a Wemby, right? You're not looking for a star player in this draft. You have your star. You're looking for somebody to complement him. And so we've talked a lot about the point guard position and getting some shooting and getting some defenders on this roster on the perimeter. So not too much pressure is on Wemby to have to defend the rim all the time. And so looking at a guy like Stephon Castle, who's a guard coming out of UConn, averaged 11 points per game, about 3 assists a game, but was a 27% three-point shooter, which he says, look, I had a bad year. I'm a much better shooter than I put on film. So maybe take his word for it, but we're going to have to see it, right? 3-point shooting worries me, and that'll be a little point that you see. Then we got, just looking at the guard positions, we got Nikola Topic, who was one of the better passers, probably the best passer in his draft. was averaging at 1.18 points and 7 assists, but towards ACL pretty recently. So you would pretty much expect him to miss the rest of this season and not have his rookie year until, yes, the 2025-2026 season is when we can actually expect that. And so it's like, why are you using a premium pick on somebody that you essentially have to stash for a whole season? I don't know if that's something that Wimby would appreciate, but I know as a fan, I wouldn't appreciate that. Sticking with the guards, you got Rob Dillingham, 15 points per game at the University of Kentucky, about 4 assists per game. And one thing I love, 3-point shooting, 44% from three. 6'1", kind of on the small side. People are worried about him being taken advantage of defensively, but I think defense is 75% effort and heart. And if you can provide that, I think we have some guys on the back end, especially with Wimby right now, that can help. We can help effort. But if you don't have the effort, and I think he showed effort, I think Coach Cal coaches effort for his players. And I think that's why they translate well, especially the guards to the NBA. Speaking of another Kentucky guard, Reed Shepherd, maybe the best shooter in this draft, shot 52% from three last year, averaged almost 13 points a game, averaged almost 5 assists per game. And he's 6'2", so a little short. I mean, kind of okay for a point guard, but you really probably see him as a two guard for the most part. But I think he has been working on his pick and roll skills as a ball handler. I think he can get the job done as a pick and roll primary ball handler, and then he can make defenders pay, right, for going under screens. I think when post ups for Wimby, I think he can kind of relocate himself, get some good looks, get some transition threes. Look, the Spurs were in desperate need of 3-point shooting. So if you can shoot a three, we'll figure the rest out. That's just kind of where I'm at with that. Some people are saying, hey, they're looking at him at number 4. Um, you know, a guy like Zach Research, French guy, 10 points a game, a little bit under 4 boards a game, shot 35% from three, 6'9", somewhat of a point forward, a guy that can slide in at the 4, maybe play a small ball 5 when Wimby's on the bench, a guy that can kind of help rim protect. I think he's going to have to work better on his defense when he gets to the NBA, but can score at all 3 levels, and that's something that they need on the wing, right? Especially if you end up, let's say, trading a Keldon Johnson, you're going to need that on the wing. Um, then you got Alex Sarr, who's a big center, but really wants to play power forward. I don't know how that would work with Wimby. Yes, Wimby could probably take on the centers, but bringing in a guy like Alex Sarr, he really wants to play power forward. It's one of the reasons why he isn't working out with the Hawks, right? But he averaged almost 10 points a game, 4 rebounds per game, 1 block per game, shot 30% from three. And the reason why I care about his 3-point percentage is if you want to play the 4 in this league, honestly, if you want to play the 5 in this league, you're going to have to learn how to shoot threes. And so we need that to get better. We need Wimby to get better at his 3-point shooting, right? And so if Alex Sarr is a part of this rotation and part of this lineup, he's going to have to get better too. Because yes, we want Wimby to shoot more threes, make more threes, but he's also 7 fucking 5. Like he needs to be around the rim, right? So we got to figure that out. Also looking at a guy, look, we've talked about, hey, maybe Wimby, we know his ultimate role is at the 5, but maybe we can slide him in at the power forward, have him take advantage of matchups on the wing, things like that. Well, a guy like Donovan Clingan out of UConn, 13 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, and what's most important, 2.5 blocks per game, so almost 3 blocks per game. A guy that can defend the rim, a guy that knows what a fucking post move is, a guy that we can run offense through, a guy that we can rely on as someone that can protect our back line on defense with and without Wimby in the lineup. And I would love it. I mean, they're teasing him at 4. Folks are maybe some people are saying they're teasing him at 4 so people can trade up and the Spurs can kind of get some more draft capital, maybe get a player in that. But who knows? At the end of the day, it's Wimby's show. You're just trying to figure out who can roll with them. And so that's why I say in the grand scheme doesn't matter. I think maybe eventually when it comes to Wimby, it matters if you're not putting enough players around him, both in draft and free agency. But I think we have time. And in a perfect world, I'm trading one, if not both, of those picks for Trae Young. I saw a guy on Twitter, big Spurs fan, in a Spurs account, and he said, "Hey, I trade picks 4, 8, Keldon, Zach, and I can't think it was another player and a few other picks for Trae Young and the first overall pick, and I'm drafting Alexander Sarr, and I got my big, and I got my point guard, and we're rolling with that. And I can see that. I wouldn't mind that. I think if we do that, I would love a Clint Capella in that trade. Reason why I'm saying I'd love a Clint Capella is because I think we still need another five, because our backup bigs were just horrendous last year. And so that's just one of the things I'm thinking about. But look, when it comes to this NBA offseason, it's been a little lackluster, and it is what it is. I think part of that is the new CBA, where players aren't actively going for trades or actively leaving teams. And hey, that's some things that we beg for as fans. We wanted people to stay, home and build a team with the team that drafted them, or build a championship roster for the team that drafted them. We're just kind of getting what we asked for. So, beggars can't be choosers. We begged for it. They gave it to us. We got to accept it for what it is. I don't want to, 4 or 5 years from now, Wemby's talking about he's unhappy in San Antonio and leaving. I think the Kawhi fiasco was enough for me. And so, um, but at the same time, the class of free agents have been underwhelming. I think the NBA draft prospects have been underwhelming. And so we have nothing really to latch on. That's why who the Lakers are hiring as their head coach is kind of the talk of the town right now, because what else should we latch on? We don't even know if we have a definitive number one overall pick, let alone a superstar in this draft. And we don't have too many superstars in the free agency class. So I think everybody's just kind of shaping up for the 2025 offseason, if we want to be honest with you. But I'm hoping that the Spurs, with I think the 4 total picks they have in this draft, I hope they come out with something, whether that's trading for a player that can come in and help, or whether that's using these picks to draft some guys that can come in and help. Playing or not making the playoffs can't be acceptable anymore. We got to get a playoff spot, or at least be fighting for a playoff spot next year, and start to build around Wemby. So, hey, show for today, right? As I said, if there's anything that I said to offend anyone, it's a good thing, right? It's an opportunity for me to learn. It's an opportunity for you to teach me. All I ask is that you keep it respectful. Peace.